The day I lost my ability to walk, I thought my life had ended. I believed the strongest parts of me had disappeared, that my purpose had been taken away, and that the world would only see what I could no longer do. But what I discovered during the most difficult chapter of my life changed everything I believed about courage and strength, because sometimes life takes away the things we depend on most, only to reveal the strength that was inside us all along. I am 74 years old. I spent much of my life serving my country, raising a family, and believing that being strong meant always being the person others could depend on. I was the woman who showed up when someone needed help, the woman who stayed calm during difficult moments, and the woman who smiled and said, "Everything will be all right," even when life was not easy. For most of my life, I believed strength meant never needing anyone else. I believed it meant standing on your own, solving your own problems, and carrying your burdens quietly so others would not have to worry. But life has a way of teaching us lessons we never expected to learn, and sometimes the moments that feel like the end of our story are actually the beginning of something new. When I joined the military, I was a young woman who wanted my life to have meaning. I wanted to serve something greater than myself, protect others, and know that my time on this earth mattered. Those years taught me discipline, courage, and the importance of standing together during difficult times. I learned that the strongest people are not always the ones who carry everything alone. They are often the ones who understand when to trust others, accept support, and keep moving forward even when the road becomes difficult. After leaving the military, I carried those lessons with me. But somewhere along the way, I forgot one of the most important ones. I became a mother, a grandmother, and the person my family could always count on. I was proud of being dependable, proud of being the person people called when they needed advice, comfort, or help. For decades, I measured my value by what I could do for others. I believed independence meant never needing assistance myself. I believed asking for help meant I was becoming weaker. I did not realize then that life would eventually teach me a different definition of strength. When my health changed and I could no longer walk the way I once did, I felt like I had lost more than my ability to move freely. I felt like I had lost my identity. Suddenly, simple things I had never thought twice about became challenges. Walking outside on a quiet morning, preparing a meal in my kitchen, visiting a friend, or simply moving around my home without thinking about it had all been part of my everyday life. I missed those moments because I never realized how precious they were while I had them. That is something many of us learn as we grow older. We spend so much time waiting for big moments that we sometimes forget the beauty of ordinary ones. A conversation with someone we love, laughter around the dinner table, a familiar song playing in the background, or a peaceful morning with a cup of coffee can become some of our greatest treasures. But at first I could not see what remained in my life. I only saw what I had lost. I looked around my home and noticed every limitation instead of every blessing. I wondered who I was if I could no longer be the person who handled everything by myself. For a while I struggled with accepting my new reality. I was frustrated, afraid, and honestly, I was grieving the life I thought I was supposed to have. I asked questions that had no easy answers. Why did this happen now? What would my future look like? Would people see me differently? Would I still matter if I needed help? Those thoughts can become heavy when we keep them locked inside. I had spent my entire life being the strong one, so admitting that I was struggling felt uncomfortable. But eventually I realized something important. Pain is not a sign of weakness, and needing support does not take away our dignity. Every person faces moments when life changes unexpectedly. Some people lose their health, some lose someone they love. Some retire after decades of work and struggle to find their new identity, and some simply wake up one day realizing life is not what it used to be. The question we all face during those moments is the same. Who are we when the things we depended on are no longer there? It took me time to find my answer, but I slowly began to understand that I had been looking in the wrong place. My strength was never only in what my body could do. My strength was in everything I had lived, everything I had given, and everything I still had left to share. One evening, while sitting quietly in my home, I found myself looking through an old box of photographs. Inside were pieces of my entire life, pictures from my military years, memories with my family, moments I had completely forgotten until I saw them again. I looked at the younger woman in those pictures and wondered where she had gone. I saw someone confident, someone determined, someone who believed she could face anything life placed in front of her. For a moment I thought that woman had disappeared. But as I continued looking through those memories, I realized something that changed the way I saw myself. That woman was still there. She was not defined by how she moved, how much she could accomplish, or how independent she appeared to others. She was defined by her courage, her kindness, her love, and the way she continued showing up for the people around her. Those things were still part of me. They had never left. I had spent so much time focusing on the person I could no longer be that I forgot to appreciate the person I had become. My life was not only made up of things I had lost, it was also made up of everything I had gained through decades of experiences, relationships, and lessons. The hardest part of my journey was learning that accepting help did not mean losing myself. For years I had been the caregiver. I was the one who prepared meals, offered advice, comforted others, and made sure everyone around me was doing okay. When my family began offering help to me, I struggled with it at first. I worried they would look at me differently. I worried they would see someone who was weak or someone who had become a burden. But the people who loved me never saw me that way. They saw the mother who had supported them, the grandmother who had shared stories with them, and the woman who had spent years giving her love and time. I learned that sometimes we create fears in our own minds that do not exist in the hearts of the people who care about us. I thought accepting help would take away my independence, but instead it gave my family a chance to show their love. It allowed them to give back a small part of everything I had given them throughout my life. Life was never meant to be a journey where we only carry others. There are seasons when we are strong for someone else, and there are seasons when we allow someone else to be strong for us. As I began accepting my new reality, I started asking myself a different question. Instead of asking, why can't I do the things I used to do? I began asking, what can I still do with the life I have today? That small change in thinking became the beginning of my healing. I realized that every person experiences loss in some form as they grow older. We lose parts of the life we once knew. We lose people we love. We lose routines that gave us comfort. We lose the energy and abilities we once had when we were younger. But losing a part of our old life does not mean losing our entire purpose. There are still people who need our kindness. There are still stories only we can tell. There are still lessons we can share because of everything we have experienced. Age does not remove our value. In many ways, it gives us something that cannot be learned any other way: wisdom. The years we live, the challenges we overcome, and the love we give become a gift we can offer to others. I began finding strength in places I had never looked before. I found strength in patience because I had to learn that not everything happens on my schedule. I found strength in humility because I had to accept that everyone needs help sometimes. I found strength in connection because I realized that the people around me were not there because I was perfect. They were there because they loved me. Most importantly, I found strength in sharing my story. For many years, I thought my struggles were something I had to hide. I thought showing vulnerability meant admitting defeat. But I discovered that our difficult experiences can become a source of comfort for someone else. Somewhere out there, another person was facing a change they never expected. Another person was wondering if their best days were behind them. Another person was quietly asking if they still had something valuable to offer. And I realized that maybe my purpose was not to pretend everything was easy. Maybe my purpose was to show others that even when life changes, we can still find meaning, hope, and happiness. One day I found my old military uniform packed away in a closet. I had not touched it in years. I held it in my hands and remembered the young woman I used to be. I remembered the challenges I faced, the people I served alongside, and the lessons that shaped my life. Looking at that uniform reminded me of something important. Courage has never been about having a perfect life. Courage is not about avoiding hardship. Courage is about continuing forward when hardship arrives. The woman who wore that uniform was still part of me. She had simply changed. Her strength was no longer shown by how far she could walk or how much she could physically carry. Her strength was shown by her ability to adapt, accept change, and continue finding reasons to be grateful. I stopped trying to become the woman I used to be and started appreciating the woman I had become. That was the moment I truly began to understand what strength really means. As time passed, I began to see my life differently. I stopped looking at aging as something that was only taking things away from me and started seeing it as a gift that had given me experiences I never could have imagined when I was younger. When we are young, we often measure life by what we accomplish, how much we achieve, and how many goals we can reach. But as we grow older, we begin to understand that the greatest treasures are often the moments we almost overlooked. The conversations with people we love, the memories created around a family table, the friendships that lasted through decades, and the simple moments when we felt truly connected to another person. Those moments become more valuable than anything we could have bought or achieved. I used to believe my strength came from being able to do everything on my own. Now I understand that strength also comes from accepting change, appreciating what remains, and finding peace with the life we have today. Life does not ask us to remain the same person forever. It asks us to continue growing, even when the path looks different from the one we imagined. My grandchildren help me understand this better than anyone else. They never looked at me and saw what I had lost. They saw their grandmother. They saw the woman who told them stories, listened to their problems, celebrated their successes, and loved them without conditions. They reminded me that the things people remember about us are rarely the things we worry about the most. They do not remember how fast we walked, how much money we earned, or how many responsibilities we carried. They remember the kindness we showed, the time we spent with them, and the way we made them feel. That realization brought me a peace I had been searching for. For so long, I was afraid that needing help meant I had become less valuable. But I learned that love is not measured by how much we can do for others. Sometimes love is also allowing others the privilege of caring for us. Giving and receiving are both important parts of life. We spend many years teaching, protecting, and supporting the people we love, and there comes a time when we must allow them to walk beside us through our own challenges. Looking back now, I do not only remember the difficult days, I remember the beautiful ones. I remember the friends who stood beside me during important moments. I remember the sound of my children laughing when they were young. I remember holding my grandchildren and realizing how quickly time passes. I remember the moments when I was afraid but found the courage to continue anyway. When I look at my life as a whole, I realize that every challenge I faced became part of my story, but it never became the entire story. The difficult moments shaped me, but they did not define me. The same is true for all of us. A setback may become a chapter in our lives, but it does not have to become the final page. We are all more than the hardest thing we have experienced. We are more than our illnesses, our losses, our mistakes, or the things we can no longer do. We are the collection of every act of love, every lesson learned, every person we helped, and every moment we chose to keep going. If there is one thing I want to tell anyone watching this today, it is this: do not let one difficult season convince you that your story is over. Life will change us. It will challenge us. It will sometimes take us down paths we never expected to travel. But even in those moments, there is still something beautiful waiting to be discovered. There is still kindness we can share, wisdom we can offer, and love we can give. Maybe your life does not look the way you imagined it would. Maybe you are facing a change that feels unfair. Maybe you wake up some mornings wondering what your purpose is now. I want you to remember that your value was never based only on what you could accomplish. Your value has always been in who you are. The experiences you have lived, the people you have touched, and the love you have given cannot be taken away. Those things are part of you forever. When I think about the young woman I once was, I feel proud of her. She faced challenges without knowing exactly how things would turn out. She stepped forward even when she was afraid. She carried responsibilities, loved deeply, and tried her best with every opportunity she was given. And when I think about the woman I am today, I feel proud of her too. She learned that strength is not always standing tall. Sometimes strength is accepting a helping hand. Sometimes strength is finding joy in a different way. Sometimes strength is waking up after a difficult night and choosing to believe there is still something good waiting ahead. I lost my ability to walk, but I found something much more important. I found acceptance. I found gratitude. I found a deeper understanding of myself. I found that my life still had meaning, my voice still had value, and my story was still worth sharing. So if you remember only one thing from my journey, remember this: your life is not finished because something has changed. You are not defined by what you have lost. You are defined by everything you have survived and everything you continue to give. There are still people who need your wisdom. There are still moments waiting to bring you happiness. There are still memories waiting to be created. And there is still strength inside you, even on the days when you cannot feel it. For most of my life, I believed strength was about how far my feet could carry me. But now I know the truth. True strength was never measured by my ability to stand. True strength was measured by my ability to keep moving forward in my heart. And as long as we have love to give, stories to share, and hope to hold on to, our journey is never over.